Augustus Pinochet's reign in Chile resulted with at least violations of 35,000 people's human rights, 28,000 people tortured, 2,279 people executed, and 1,248 people missing. Augustus Pinochet was born on November 25, 1915. He was a Chilean military leader. Pinochet rose to power through his military leadership, changing the constitution to keep himself in power, killed thousands of people, while preaching that he's creating a more nationalistic society and country for entrepreneurs in the future.
In 1973, Pinochet led a military junta, which is a military or political group ruling the country after it has been taken over. They overthrew the socialist government of President Salvador Allende on September 11, 1973. Pinochet tactically had planned out how to take over the country after the coup. Pinochet's memoir states that he was the leading plotter of the coup and had used his position as commander-in-chief of the army to coordinate a far-reaching scheme with the other two branches of the military and the national police. Pinochet had always wanted to have control by placing himself in power until free voting was to be held, although he had stayed as commander for the next 7 years. Nearly 40 years later, an anniversary was held for the coup, in which President Sebastián Pinera criticized the violent coup that started a 17-year period of military rule. Pinochet was able to stay in power by using legal methods to place himself as the head of state. After the coup, Pinochet became the sole chairman of the junta and proclaimed himself as supreme chief of the nation. Pinochet had forced some of his enemies into retirement, such as General Ley, the head of the Air Force. On September 11, 1980, Pinochet had started the creation of a new constitution that placed much of the power into his hands. In 1980, he enacted the constitution, giving himself a presidential term that lasts 80 years. A plebiscite, which is a direct vote from eligible voters, held in 1988 rejected his presidential term until after 1990, but he still kept his role as commander-in-chief of the army until 1998. Pinochet was a determined man and used any method of staying in power even if it took freedom away. A book written by Ozren Agnek Kristolovich states that the opposition of the new government had smuggled weapons into the country to defeat Pinochet. Pinochet wanted his country to be more nationalistic. His ideology might seem positive, but the way he went about it was certainly not. The plan recommended a set of economic reforms that included the regulation of privatization. Among other reforms, they made the central bank independent, privatized the state-controlled pension system, state industries and banks, and reduced taxes. Pinochet's stated aim was to make Chile not a nation of proletarians, but a nation of entrepreneurs. Pinochet murdered thousands of political prisoners, leaving them without a burial. He never cared for the consequences. Many years later, those crimes led Judge Guzman to indicate him for crimes against humanity. After that, the Supreme Court of Chile stripped the general of his self-granted parliamentary immunity by interpreting the deaths or disappearance of the prisoners as a case of kidnapping. Pinochet had attempted to create Chile a better country, but ultimately was achieving that goal with the cost of Chilean lives. World Fascism, a historical encyclopedia, stated, although he was an authoritarian and ruled dictatorially, Pinochet's support of neoliberal economic policies and his unwillingness to support national businesses distinguished himself from classical fascists.
Augustus Pinochet was Chile's 30th president, who was born on 25th November 1915 and died 91 years later on December 10th, 2006. Pinochet, using his military role to rise to power, changing the constitution to keep himself in power, killing thousands of people while claiming his aims are innocent.